I was going to come back. I learned a lesson in that lapse in concentration in the camp in preparation that I have since adjusted. And, that's why I think I'm only warming up here in this game. I really, really believe I'm only warming up. I used to always train a certain way, throw certain shots that the fight game has never even seen. Many shots I have in my arsenal, the fight game has never even seen.
Almost everyone is picking Max Holloway to win this weekend. Yet the odds favor him. The momentum favors him. Activity favors him. On paper, this looks like one of the toughest fights of Conor McGregor's entire career. But here's the thing. Conor McGregor has built his legacy by winning fights people believed he couldn't win. So if he really is going to pull off one final upset, how does he actually do it? Let's break down the only realistic game plan that could give Conor McGregor a chance against Max Holloway. Welcome back to Fight Update. Conor McGregor vs. Max Holloway 2 is finally here. And if we're being honest, Conor enters this fight as the underdog for good reason. 5 years away from MMA, a devastating leg injury, years of inactivity, and now he's facing one of the greatest featherweights in UFC history, a fighter many already consider an all-time great. Everything points toward Holloway, but MMA has always been unpredictable. If McGregor has one last championship-level performance left inside him, it will require the perfect strategy. The first thing to understand is this: grappling probably won't decide this fight. Yes, Conor may mix in the occasional takedown attempt to keep Holloway guessing. But realistically, it's difficult to imagine him controlling Max on the ground for extended periods. Even elite grapplers have struggled to do that consistently. Charles Oliveira found success largely because of his body lock entries and positional control. Ilia Topuria also had moments on the mat, but never truly dominated Holloway there. More importantly, Conor simply isn't built to wrestle for 5 rounds. That has never been his style. If he tries to turn this into a grinding wrestling match, he likely burns valuable energy far too early. So if wrestling isn't the answer, the fight has to be won on the feet, and it has to happen early. The goal isn't necessarily to score one perfect one-punch knockout. Instead, Conor should be looking for a TKO. At welterweight, he probably doesn't carry the same one-shot finishing power that someone like Ilia Topuria possesses, but a technical stoppage remains a realistic possibility, especially considering what we've seen from Holloway recently. Throughout his last several fights, Max has shown signs that his legendary durability may finally be changing.
Personally, I think because it's at welterweight, I see Conor knocking him out. Like, everyone's counting Conor out and thinks that Max is going to win. If it goes to the later rounds, yeah, Max definitely probably start piecing him up on the feet because he's got that cardio and the volume. But
he was hurt by Justin Gaethje, stopped by Ilia Topuria, dropped by Dustin Poirier, and even had difficult moments against Charles Oliveira. For years, Holloway's incredible movement allowed him to absorb shots that would have knocked out most fighters. His footwork, his head movement, his ability to roll with punches, those qualities helped preserve one of the greatest chins the sport has ever seen. But when that movement slows, everything changes. Alexander Volkanovski demonstrated that attacking Holloway's legs could reduce his mobility and make him much easier to hit. The same pattern appeared in later fights. Once Holloway's movement became limited, opponents found significantly more success landing clean punches. That's exactly what Conor has to target. The problem is, time isn't on his side. Historically, McGregor does his best work early. The latest finish of his championship run came against Chad Mendes late in the second round. After that, his performances have generally become less dangerous as fights continue. Against someone like Holloway, that's a major concern. If this fight reaches the championship rounds, the advantage almost certainly shifts toward Max. His pace, his cardio, his volume, those are areas where Holloway has consistently separated himself from almost everyone he's faced. So Conor cannot afford a slow start. He needs urgency, he needs pressure. He needs to force Holloway onto the defensive from the opening bell. In many ways, the blueprint resembles the Chad Mendes fight: controlled aggression, sharp counterstriking, relentless pressure, and taking advantage of every opening before Holloway has the chance to settle into his rhythm. Can McGregor still fight that way after 5 years away? That's the biggest unknown entering this matchup. Another key factor will be leg kicks. Historically, Conor hasn't relied on calf kicks nearly as much as fighters like Volkanovski, Topuria, or Holloway himself.
That's been Conor's Achilles heel, is that Conor, he's so explosive and so fast that if you're sprinting in that first round, guaranteed you're not going to have that same kind of energy in the fifth round.
But on the opposite side of that, you got a guy like Nate Diaz who will keep that same pace from round 1 to 5.
In fact, Holloway may actually have the advantage in that department, because this is an open stance matchup. Some of the outside calf kicks that Topuria landed so effectively become more difficult to use. Instead, Conor may need to rely on different attacks to the lower body, including inside and oblique kicks, while mixing them with his boxing combinations. The goal isn't simply to damage Holloway's legs. It's to slow his movement, reduce his ability to roll with punches, and create moments where Max believes he can evade a shot, only to discover that he's standing exactly where Conor wants him. Once Holloway's movement begins to slow, that's where Conor has to capitalize. That is the moment the fight changes. If McGregor is going to hurt Max, he can't allow him time to recover. One clean knockdown isn't enough. He has to swarm him. Historically, Conor has been excellent at recognizing when an opponent is compromised and immediately piling on pressure before they can regain their composure. We've already seen moments where Holloway's movement noticeably slowed after taking body shots. When that happens, his footwork becomes slightly less fluid. His exits aren't quite as clean. And those tiny mistakes can become massive opportunities against a precision striker like McGregor. Maybe calf kicks aren't the primary answer. Maybe body kicks become the better investment. Either way, Conor needs something that gradually limits Holloway's movement, whether that's damaging the legs, attacking the body, or simply forcing Max to reset more often. Slowing Holloway down has to become one of the biggest priorities. Body kicks could also serve another important purpose. They naturally push Holloway into predictable escape routes. That's exactly where Conor's dangerous left hand, lead hook, and uppercut become much easier to land. Rather than chasing Holloway around the cage, McGregor needs to guide him into the shots he wants to throw. It's less about speed and more about creating traps. The biggest unknown entering this fight may actually be the weight class itself. At welterweight, there are simply too many unanswered questions.
Well, we know that, Conor hasn't been in the game for a long time, and I think a lot of people are thinking that he's just going to lose everything, but that's not the case. He's going to be dangerous. He's obviously going to still be very sharp, very explosive, still got a good eye. Is it the exact eye that he had when he was, double champ and doing what he was doing? No, probably not, but still going to be very dangerous. And I know Max is going to respect that. Obviously, they're going to want to put on a show, but at the same time, you're going to know Conor will be very dangerous early. I think Max will make the right decisions to not just get in the fire straight away, and then start to work him later in them rounds. We know that Conor, again, very dangerous, very explosive, but that is going to wear on you. And with that big layoff, even though he's probably training very hard, we know that that's going to eventually wear on him, and that sharpness that I reckon he still has is probably going to deteriorate a lot quicker because of he's been out of the game for so long.
How much stronger does Holloway become without a difficult weight cut? Does his durability improve? Does he carry more power? Or does the extra weight reduce the movement that has made him so difficult to hit throughout his career? The same questions apply to McGregor. Does his knockout power translate better at 170 pounds? Or was the Donald Cerrone performance simply the perfect stylistic matchup? It's impossible to know for certain. What we do know is that McGregor's finish over Cerrone remains one of the most impressive performances anyone produced against the veteran late in his career. Few fighters have ever been better at recognizing an opening and immediately turning it into a finish. That's always been one of Conor's greatest strengths. The challenge now is finding those opportunities against someone as experienced as Holloway. Another major concern is ring rust. 5 years is an incredibly long time away from elite-level competition. The question isn't whether ring rust exists. It almost certainly does. The real question is whether there's a point where additional inactivity stops making things significantly worse. Does 3 years away feel much different than 5? Nobody really knows. Every fighter responds differently. Then there's another factor that's impossible to ignore. Lifestyle. McGregor has openly spoken about making healthier choices and appears much more focused than he has in years. But rebuilding habits takes time. And returning to championship-level MMA requires far more than motivation alone. Against someone like Holloway, being mentally prepared isn't enough. Everything has to be sharp. Timing, distance, reactions, decision-making. Every detail matters. One area where McGregor is sometimes criticized is his cardio. Personally, that criticism may be slightly overstated. Historically, his finishing ability tends to decline as fights become longer. We've also seen him manage his energy effectively. The rematch against Nate Diaz is probably the best example. Rather than throwing everything into every exchange, McGregor paced himself, picked his moments, and successfully fought across 5 rounds. Could he do something similar against Holloway? Possibly. Although the challenge is very different. Max isn't going to give Conor the same openings that Diaz did. He's far more active, far more disciplined, and far more difficult to control over long stretches. Still, fighting at 170 pounds could benefit McGregor's conditioning. Without the brutal weight cut required at featherweight, it's reasonable to believe his cardio could hold up better than many people expect. Whether that's enough against someone with Holloway's relentless pace is an entirely different question. One performance that could offer clues is Conor's fight against Chad Mendes. People often point to the fact that McGregor looked tired later in that contest, but context matters. He was forced to defend repeated takedowns, scramble constantly, and still maintained an aggressive striking pace throughout the fight.
I'm gonna go towards Max Holloway, and I'm leaning towards Max Holloway, but I don't know if McGregor's gonna at least have 10 pounds on him, dude. He has put on a lot of size. Is that a recipe for disaster for him if this does go into the later rounds? Yes. I'm talking about a McGregor fight in 2026. I'm breaking down a Conor McGregor fight in 2026, dude. I actually can't believe I'm saying these words. We're so back. The White House card, Strickland beats Chimaev. If only Yuri wouldn't have fumbled it. Yuri, you fool.
That combination drains almost any fighter. Against Holloway, the game plan should look very different. Instead of spending energy wrestling, Conor should focus on controlled striking while investing heavily in body attacks. Front kicks, round kicks, straight shots to the midsection. The objective isn't simply to score points. It's to gradually slow Holloway's pace. Every body shot makes it harder to maintain the relentless volume that has defined Max's career. If Holloway carries extra size at welterweight, targeting the body becomes even more important.
More weight often means more energy required to keep moving.
And if Conor can chip away at Holloway's gas tank early, it may help reduce one of Max's biggest advantages later in the fight. We've already seen promotional photos of Holloway preparing for the move to 170 pounds. But appearances during fight week don't necessarily tell the whole story. The real question is how both fighters look once they're fully rehydrated on fight night. Will Holloway benefit from cutting less weight? Or will carrying extra mass slightly reduce the movement that has made him so difficult to hit throughout his career?
Nobody knows.
That's one of the biggest unknowns surrounding this matchup. Even after breaking everything down, it's still difficult to officially pick Conor McGregor. The inactivity, the age, injuries, and the level of opposition all create enormous question marks. At the same time, writing Conor off completely has never been a comfortable position. Throughout his career, he's repeatedly proven people wrong when expectations were at their lowest. If McGregor is going to win, the path seems fairly clear. Start fast. Pressure Holloway immediately. Attack the body. Slow his movement. And look for a finish before the championship rounds become a factor. If the fight extends too long, the momentum likely shifts toward Max.
Oh, I seen Max and Charles starved themselves the last time out at 155 pounds for the BMF. I didn't think there's anything BMF about it. Who's the baddest man in a sauna? So, I'm a big boy now. 170 pounds is my frame. And I like it. I thought I'd give a gift.
Personally, I don't expect Holloway to dominate from the opening bell. In fact, I could easily see Conor having success early, winning the first round, possibly even portions of the second, landing the cleaner shots while Holloway studies his timing. But as the fight progresses, the pace may begin catching up to him. Max has built a career on breaking opponents over time, round after round, minute after minute. If that pattern continues here, the later stages of the fight become increasingly dangerous for McGregor. My prediction? A competitive start. An exciting first half of the fight, then Holloway gradually takes control before earning a TKO victory somewhere around the 4th round. Of course, this is MMA, One perfectly timed left hand could change everything in an instant. That's exactly why this matchup has captured so much attention. We'll finally find out whether Conor McGregor still has one more unforgettable performance left, or whether Max Holloway closes the chapter on one of the greatest careers the sport has ever seen. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to Fight Update, and turn on notifications so you never miss our fight breakdowns, documentaries, and MMA analysis. Thanks for watching Fight Update, and we'll see you in the next video. As dangerous as Max Holloway is, I don't believe he walks through Conor McGregor without resistance. Conor has spent his entire career proving he's incredibly difficult to put away. Even when he's hurt, he has a way of surviving, adjusting, and finding moments to fight back. That's one reason I don't expect Holloway to completely dominate from start to finish. I think Conor's toughness, experience, and ability to create dangerous exchanges will keep him competitive longer than many people expect. But over the course of a longer fight, those small advantages begin shifting toward Holloway: his pace, his volume, his durability, his activity over the past several years. Eventually, all of those factors become difficult to overcome. That's ultimately why I believe Holloway gets the stoppage later in the fight, not because Conor lacks heart, but because Max forces opponents to fight at a pace that's incredibly difficult to sustain. Still, counting Conor McGregor out has never been completely safe. Throughout his career, he's built a legacy by proving people wrong. One perfectly timed left hand could instantly change everything. That's exactly why this fight feels so fascinating. It isn't simply about rankings or championships. It's about whether one of the biggest stars in combat sports history can still produce one last unforgettable performance. Now it's your turn. Who do you think wins? Does Conor McGregor shock the world one more time? Or does Max Holloway officially close the chapter on one of the greatest careers MMA has ever seen? Let us know your prediction in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to Fight Update, and turn on notifications so you never miss our fight breakdowns, documentaries, and the latest MMA news. Thanks for watching Fight Update. We'll see you in the next video.